This is the Chris Stigall Show podcast.
Okay, guys, let's just rip. And Chris Stigall.
Chris Stigall. Chris, thanks for being with me tonight.
Chris Stigall.
I'm joined now by Chris Stigall.
Now, he puts the broad in broadband. It's Chris Stigall.
The Chris Stigall podcast is presented by usmedicalplan.com. Save big money monthly and get better health coverage at usmedicalplan.com.
It's Monday. It's the 17th day of April. I thank you so much for downloading the Chris Stigall Show podcast. Coming up today, a fascinating guy who formerly served in the United States Congress from Pennsylvania. He is a clinical psychologist. Dr. Tim Murphy is his name. He served for many years as a state legislator in the House of Representatives and now back in private practice. Politics really took it out of him, just sucked the life right out of the guy, and he wrote a brilliant book called The Christ Cure, 10 Biblical Ways to Heal from Trauma, Tragedy, and PTSD. I thought his voice was an important one because you like politics, and I do too, even though it's awfully very toxic and it weighs on you. I thought Dr. Murphy's analysis would be useful to us all today, and just kind of generally talking about trauma, healing from trauma and tragedy. That's something that I think all of us have dealt with. Maybe some of us are struggling with. So from time to time, I like to bring you conversations that I think are edifying and not just about politics, but there'll be some of that too. Also coming up today, the fallout from this Budweiser debacle is really sort of an interesting case study in the marketplace. I don't call it boycotting. I actually call it something else, and there are a lot of people suggesting it is. But the memo has gone out, and whether it's comedy shows, whether it's pop culture, whether it's news, they're all singing from the same hymnal. I often pick up on these trends, and I'll tell you what that's about today. Plus a dime heist. Yes, dime, as in the 10-cent coin. Hundreds of thousands of them go missing. And I have a question. In the way they went missing, it will surprise you. 2 solid days out of doors on the sprawling estate of Stately Stigall Manor, just cutting. We have lots and lots of trees on the property, and it bothers my wife to no end. Now we purposely have relocated to a place with some room to breathe and some trees. We wanted the sanctuary of some quiet and some space, right? But as such, this is not a traditional, fenced neighborhood yard kind of a thing. Make sense? Yeah, this isn't like, you're peeking over your neighbor's fence and the Wilson's lawn looks better than our lawn kind of a thing. This is a treed lot for all intents and purposes. It's basically like a house sits in the middle of the woods is kind of the way to think of it.
Yep, that makes total sense.
So as I've tried to explain to my wife, because of that, this is not like the lawn that we used to have, where it was immaculate and perfect and free of any kind of shrubbery or trees or anything else. This is basically just a forestscape. Well, now every time a tree falls, my wife just can't stand it. She's beside herself. We got to do something about that tree. I said, it really doesn't, of all that there is to do or all that we could spend the weekend doing, I'm like, is the downed old tree really the biggest? Now, again, if it were the one tree in the yard, if most of your yard is yard and a tree falls, obviously it's noticeable. Everybody sees it. But when most of your yard is trees, in which ours is, you don't notice it. Trees have fallen on other sides of us that aren't our property. It just looks like it. If you went through a walk through the woods today, you'd see new trees, little trees, big trees, old trees, rotted trees, dead trees, right? I'm enjoying the fact that it's just sort of a milieu of trees. No, not her. My wife, every time she sees it on a tree, she wants the tree up. She wants it removed. And I said, well, we're not paying people to come cut trees out of the forest. We don't need to do that. We got a fire pit, stuff like that. I said, at our leisure, we'll go out and we'll remove some trees. Well, this was the weekend. So for 2 straight days, that's all we did. Went out there and with the chainsaw, start cutting trees, hacking down limbs, loading them up in the truck, throwing them into the brush fire pit. And I'm here to tell you right now, I'm feeling parts of my body I didn't even know existed Fast Eddie. I mean, I am sitting here. I'm just a swollen, throbbing mass of goo.
No, Chris, it's so weird you say that because it's the first time in a long time my wife and I were at a wedding and I was dancing pretty hard, like for 2 straight hours. Dude, muscles on my sides. I feel like I've been laughing for 3 days, but muscles on my sides are completely pulled. My back, my knee. I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I do?
Yours at least sounds more fun. Yeah. I'm not sure which is worse, though. You went out to have fun and you hurt, or you've been working and you hurt. Which is worse? Yours actually might sound a little worse.
That's true.
Yeah, but at any rate, so it's not that you can hear it. I still sound fantastic, but just know that I'm entertaining and informing through throbbing ache, like I didn't even know I could feel as a 46-year-old man. And some people at church yesterday, I was kind of belly aching about a little bit. And this one guy, he says, "How old are you?" I said, "I'm 46. He goes, "I'm 70. Wait till you hit this age. You can't do anything for like days after." I was like, yeah, I get it now. Now I get it. I never used to get it. I get it now. Just unbelievable. I'll just tell you, though, swinging an axe, pulling out a chainsaw, throwing limbs and brush and, splitting logs and that kind of stuff. Now you understand why the brawny man on your paper towel is brawny. That's why the imagery of a lumberjack, I get it. Those guys are tough. They're stacked.
But so Christine really has a problem with just the existing trees, because I would approach it this way. If a tree goes down, it's like, okay, well, now I know where I'm going to cut for the fire pit night. Like it's a good spot to start and just let nature do what it does. And you only go out with the chainsaw when you're ready for a fire.
That's me. There's plenty of room. I mean, it's not like we need this. Again, it's if you have a traditional lawn like we've always had all our lives, until we relocated, a traditional lawn with a down tree would be obvious. It would be in the way. It would be something everybody would want to take care of immediately. You wouldn't want it laying in the middle of your yard. You got to mow. The kids have got to play. But we specifically purchased this house because it was in a non-traditional setting that way. It was nothing but mostly trees. I mean, there is some lawn, but it was largely just meant to be a place where Dean could run. You go out and you bathe in nature. You listen to the birds. I take a walk and I have a cigar. But there's really no tending to a lawn in the traditional sense. There's the immediate area around the house, and that's it. And then it's just trees everywhere in every direction that you can see. And I'm fine. If a tree falls in that mess, I'm like, it's a tree. She just can't. And she's not OCD about anything in the house. Now, in the house, there's shoes in the middle of the floor or whatever. Those have got to get in their place. Everything in there drives me crazy. She doesn't care. We go outside. That tree, like 3 acres away, that tree over there, that's got to come out. That's got to. I go, why? We've got more than enough room. Who are they complaining? The deer? The turkey registered a complaint with you? Like a down log in the middle of the. Whatever. You get it. Anyway, hope your weekend was a fantastic one. That was the sum total of mine. So I didn't see a lot of news until yesterday as I was preparing for today's show. I was pleased to see, I'd tell you who this was if, you'd know who this was if I told you who it was. I'm not going to tell you who it was in the spirit of anonymity. But I'll just tell you that someone someone whose name you'd know, shared with me the final total. They shared this with you too, Fast Eddie. Some total of the Anheuser-Busch losses monetarily, $7 billion with a B, $7 billion in market cap. This is someone in the business community whose name you'd know, who's a friend of the show, shared in a text with us that was ultimately inside the Anheuser-Busch fiasco with Dylan Mulvaney. That's ultimately what they think they've calculated their market cap losses. $7 billion with a B. Now, have you heard this? And I didn't see the context of it. And I don't know if it was a video put out or what it was, but apparently Donald Trump Jr. asked people to kind of back off Anheuser-Busch a little bit. Did you read that or hear that last week? Because the RNC has similarly decided it's best to back off Anheuser-Busch. And I'm kind of intrigued by this, if true. I can't say for sure that I know this is true. It comes from the Daily Beast, so I have to kind of consider the source here. The National Republican Congressional Committee has quietly deleted a fundraising page Saturday that took aim at one of the largest donors they have, Anheuser-Busch. The NRCC's backpedaling follows conservative calls for a boycott of the beer company after it partnered with transgender TikTok personality Dylan Mulvaney, reports the Daily Beast. Saturday morning, so this was just over the weekend, the powerful committee that provides support to Republican congressional campaigns blasted out a tweet calling for supporters to donate to the NRCC and in exchange be given a custom drink koozie. Thanks to Dylan Mulvaney, we can all finally admit that Bud Light tastes like water, the NRCC said in a since-deleted tweet. With our new koozies, you can make sure no one confuses Bud Light with real beer ever again. Pretty clever. Shortly after it was posted around 9:30, the tweet was taken down. Later Saturday afternoon, the corresponding fundraising page was also taken down. The decision to reverse course is almost certainly a reaction to the reality that the parent company behind Bud Light is a major donor to the group and comes after, this is the part that I really didn't know, comes after Donald Trump Jr. urged an end to the boycott. In the 2022 election cycle, Anheuser-Busch and its employees gave the NRCC almost $500,000. Now, I dug in at least to the Daily Beast archives here. It says Donald Trump Jr., and again, I'm reading from the Daily Beast. It says Donald Trump Jr. called on conservatives to pump the brakes on their boycott of Bud Light, noting that the right-wing meltdown over the beer company partnering with transgender influencers isn't worth destroying an American icon. Did he? Can you confirm that Donald Trump Jr. said that?
Yes, I have about a minute's worth of audio. I just skipped the very beginning of it because he says the S word. So we have 7
Okay.
seconds of delay if I can play it. But here's what Donald Trump Jr. said.
Of anything. I'm not, though, for destroying an American and iconic company for something like this. Trust me, the memes have been so good. I'm sitting there chomping at it, like I want it. But like when I actually look into it, I'm not going to blame the whole company for the inaction or the stupidity of someone in a marketing campaign that got woke as hell. The company itself doesn't participate in the same leftist nonsense as the other big conglomerates. I had my team get into the details, and we looked into the political giving and lobbying history of Anheuser-Busch. And guess what? They actually support Republicans. In woke corporate America, Anheuser-Busch supports Republicans. Last cycle, their employees and their PAC gave about 60% to Republicans and 40% to Democrats. And that's literally almost unheard of in corporate America.
Yeah, well, okay. Look, I never... Here's the thing. Here's what kind of bothers me about this story. Actually, one more before I get into this. Friday, heading into the weekend, Anheuser-Busch's top executive offered an apology. We never intended to be part of a discussion that divides people, says the Anheuser-Busch InBev CEO, Brendan Whitworth. By the way, this is, again, it's InBev. This is a Belgian company. Anheuser-Busch hasn't been an American company in well over a decade. Just so you know. Yes, Anheuser-Busch's headquarters are still in St. Louis, Missouri, but InBev, a Belgian brewery company, owns them. So, whatever. But anyway, their American CEO, Brendan Whitworth, said in a press release that he titled Our Responsibility to America. Quote, we are in the business of bringing people together over a beer. Whitworth finally breaking his silence over the brewing controversy, but made no mention of the sponsorship deal with Mulvaney, which has led to calls for a boycott of the nation's largest beer company. He also didn't address reports that senior executives were kept in the dark about the Mulvaney rollout. Instead, Whitworth said that he was focused on building and protecting our remarkable history and heritage, Moving forward, I will continue to work tirelessly to bring great beers to consumers across the nation. The $132 billion company has seen its market value plummet, as I said off the top, about $7 billion. Bush distributors around the country have been feeling the fallout. Many bars in conservative states from Tennessee to Wyoming refusing to stock Bud Light. I simply don't understand why they hired a person who was doing the marketing. I mean, if your target customer is Kid Rock, and then all of a sudden you decide to go to RuPaul, that just doesn't make any sense, says somebody from something called Oxygen Financial. You know, I have to call attention to what I think. Well, you know what? I'm sorry. I don't mean to get distracted. I will keep my place. One more. Democrat from California, a woman called Katie Porter, congressperson, was on with Bill Maher over the weekend, and the subject of Riley Gaines came up. Riley Gaines, our great friend, 12-time NCAA women's swimmer, a champion from University of Kentucky, until, of course, she competed against Leah Thomas, who's really a dude, who was one of the worst male swimmers in the country, then decided to call himself a girl at the University of Pennsylvania, swam against Riley, and beat Riley. Barely. As a dude who now calls himself a woman. Well, since then, Riley has graduated. She's moved on, and she's become, you know, with the Independent Women's Forum, she's become a national spokesperson for, hey, let's let women compete with other women in women's sports. Let's protect women's sports. And you know how she's been treated. I mean, she went out to the University of San Francisco last week and was attacked. They ended up whisking her into a room where she was basically barricaded in for 3 hours while people were trying to get at her. Here's what the California Congresswoman, Katie Porter, had to say about that.
We should be able to have a civil debate. Nobody, including Riley Gaines, who I disagree with strongly, should be
What do you disagree with, out of interest?
I think that it should be up to sporting bodies to make their decisions about who and how should compete. What has she said that's
actually wrong?
I think that what she has done is try to turn this. We talked about people, using things to kind of get likes and get clicks.
That's not what she's doing. I've got no truck for Riley Gaines personally, but all I've seen her do is stand up for women's rights to fairness and equality.
Well,
she actually competed against Leah Thomas, and it was obviously unfair. Leah Thomas won one of the races in the NCAA championships by 50 seconds against a bunch of biological females who simply couldn't keep up. That cannot be right. It cannot be fair.
That is something that I think our sporting bodies should be dealing with. And by the way, Riley is speaking up for herself, and that is her prerogative, and I respect her free speech.
I think she's speaking up for pretty much every female athlete in the world.
I mean, wasn't that the point of Title IX?
Yeah.
Title IX.
So anyway, you get it. The point is, the reason I wanted to play that for you is Katie Porter's take on this. Riley Gaines is just in this for herself. Riley Gaines is just trying to get clicks. She's just trying to get attention. And this is going to be a bit of a stretch, maybe, and this might irk some of you, but when Donald Trump Jr. said, hey, guys, let's not boycott Anheuser-Busch. Hey, they're a great brand. Let's not go after a great American brand. You know what? I kind of hear the same thing. I hear almost the exact same thing between Donald Trump Jr. and Katie Porter. And you know what it is? It's your fault. It's blaming you. It's blaming your reaction to something. Donald Trump Jr. and Katie Porter, Democrat California, share in common this notion that somehow you went out and decided to go to war, or Riley Gaines went out and decided to go to war. And as I said to you a couple of weeks ago when this whole thing began, nobody went looking for this. There is a significant difference between what the left does, which is just one day out of thin air, which is what we're living every single day of our lives under this administration. Just as we did with Barack Obama for 8 years, we're living a third term of Barack Obama now. And every day these people are in power, they wake and create some new norm, some new institution, some new tradition, some new American way of life. Every single day, these people wake up and try to figure out how to launch an attack on it. Every day. And then you and I, who are sitting here minding our own businesses, going to our jobs, raising our children, picking up limbs from the yard, we're not bothering anybody. We don't mean anybody any harm. We don't care how people lead their lives. And then all of a sudden, one day, wait a minute, you're doing what to the school bathrooms? Wait a minute, my daughter now has to compete against who? Wait a minute, downtown is burning and being looted in the spirit of what? Police brutality? What? The whole city's being destroyed? Huh? Every day and every way. Wait, we're being locked down for why now? Wait, masks for what? Every day for years now, 3 years really, some new thing has been foisted upon you and me. Cars we don't want. Hey, we want everybody, most everybody to be driving a plug-in car in 9 years. But most of us don't want or drive plug-in cars now. Yeah, well, you're gonna. Your gas stove, you like that? Don't get used to it. Protest outside of Planned Parenthood? We'll raid your home. So said another way, is Riley Gaines out seeking attention? Or was she swimming and competing and winning and minding her own business when suddenly a man jumped in the pool and they called the man a woman and beat Riley Gaines? And now Riley Gaines is responding, and she's decided to take the lightning, and she's decided to be the spokesperson for this because so many other people are cowering. She's decided to make it a case. She's crisscrossing the country and speaking out. She's attacked, and Katie Porter dares say that she's just doing it for clicks and attention? Was she looking for this? Had you ever heard of Riley Gaines in your life? Until a man called himself a dude and jumped in the swimming pool with her and beat her by a few seconds? Had you ever heard of Riley Gaines in your life? Unless you followed women swimming, which I did not. I'd never heard of her. Now I adore her. I've never met her. I'd never met her until CPAC in person. I've talked with her many times now. Great friend. I think she's tremendous. I think she's brave. She's newly married. She doesn't need this guff. She didn't want it. I mean, she signed up for it because this was her life. Her little sister is now coming up as an athlete. She has strong athletic ties in her family. So she's protecting her little sister. She has interest in women. She speaks for women everywhere who are competitive in sport like her. She's done. She doesn't need it. She certainly doesn't need to be barricaded in a classroom. She could go do something else. But she's decided to take on an issue because she was confronted with it. Same with the beer. To be honest with you, and maybe you know of something that I don't, I'm not a beer drinker, and I don't really care. But I'm not a drinker at all anymore. But even when I was a drinker, I wasn't really much into beer, and certainly not Bud Light. But anyway, who went looking for this? Who's a Bud Light drinker that was looking for this controversy? No one. Who was asking for it? No one. All right, so Kid Rock and a couple of other famous people decide to make a couple of videos online that show them shooting their Bud Light cans in the backyard or whatever. It's funny. But was there an organized boycott of Bud Light that you know of? Now, maybe there was, and I don't know. Because I don't run in beer circles. I'm not at bars anymore. Some bartenders have reached out to the show and said, I haven't really noticed an appreciable drop in Bud sales. It's fine. It's still moving. But here's my point. $7 billion in market cap. Bud Light has managed to achieve losses, spectacular losses. Who did it? Who did it? The woman in the marketing department who said people that drink their beer and the marketing that's been appealing to the people that drink their beer is too fratty and too old-fashioned. The woman who's in charge of marketing their beer attacked the consumers of their beer. Just like a dude jumped in the swimming pool and basically attacked the meritocracy of women's swimming. The left attacked them. I say them because I'm not a women's swimmer nor my Bud Light drinker, so this doesn't apply to me in either story. But these are two examples of these people minding their own business. Bud Light drinkers were minding their own business. Riley Gaines was minding her own business. When the American left decided to hijack the culture, when a leftist woman, a marketer at Bud Light, decided to hijack the company and literally insult the consumer. And so, naturally, the consumer reacts and says, well, screw you. I'll go find another beer. And I guess all due respect, and I think the world of Donald Trump Jr., I don't understand the, hey, guys, let's go easy on Budweiser. Let's not pick on Anheuser-Busch. All due respect, Mr. Trump, we're not picking on Anheuser-Busch. They're picking on us. They picked a fight with us. They started it. I get so tired of this. Hey, easy now. Let's back off. Ooh. Let calmer heads prevail here. Ooh, easy. First of all, is there ever a call for them to back off or ease up or lay off or peel back? Never. Their position is always dialed to an 11 on a scale of 1 to 10. The left is always an 11. We, who never picket, we never boycott. We don't have the time. We just organically say, you know what, this doesn't seem right and this doesn't seem fair. We weren't bothering anybody and now we're public enemy number one. No thanks. Screw you, Budweiser. We're not drinking your beer anymore. Oh, easy. They're big givers. I don't give an excrement. I don't care. And by the way, this is the power you have and I have. Let's be very clear. This goes back to what Matt Walsh said, I think, last week. There was no organized call for boycotts, and I'm not really much for them on balance anyway. I didn't, people said, well, I'm not going to go watch baseball if they take the All-Star game and move it to Denver from Atlanta because Georgia passed some voter rights legislation a couple of years ago. I'm like, I'm not going to not watch a baseball game in Philadelphia because they moved the All-Star game from it. Like, that's not realistic. I'm not angry at all of baseball. I don't think every team in baseball. That didn't make sense to me. Boycott the I don't know. But in the organic marketplace of ideas, the Bud Light consumer said, wait a minute now. The marketing director for Bud Light said, what? About me and the beer? What? And they hired who to be this? Oh, okay, no, I don't. There's too much other beer out there. I'm not going to associate myself with this anymore. Easy, guys, easy. Let's not boycott. No one boycotted. The marketplace organically reacted to being attacked. So this just irked me. Folks, I wanted to start with this today because there's this. I just heard a news story this morning. John Sununu, the Republican governor of New Hampshire. He's the non-social issues Republican, you see. He's going to run, but he's going to run on economic issues. He's not going to talk about these divisive social issues. Ron DeSantis down there in Florida talking about the social issues. You Republicans are always talking about the social issue. Are we? Or did you decide to let transgender and drag queen strippers into our schools to read to our school kids? Did we go looking for that, or did you foist it on us and we reacted? You see what they do? They taunt. We react, and everybody goes, whoa, you conservatives and your social issues. F you. We're reacting to being pushed. And what this actually proves and shows is we are not organic. Our default position is not burn it down, boycott, disrupt. That's not our default position. But when you push us, when you come after our kids, when you insult us to our faces, when you call men women and try to compete against our women, at some point we stand up and we say, this is insane, and no, we're not participating. An organic marketplace reaction happens. Bud Light sales drop. Huge support for Riley Gaines in women's sports swells. Legislatures react. Ron DeSantis wins in a landslide fashion after going to war with places like Disney and protecting kids. The marketplace, the voters, they react. So please don't lecture and say this is for clicks or let's not boycott no. This is the natural outgrowth of civilized, decent, normal Americans being attacked. This is the natural outgrowth, and quite frankly, it's inspiring to me because it shows the country has a pulse. And in fact, you are not as alone or powerless as perhaps you may feel. It's been my pleasure and honor to talk about Bob Spinato at Williamsburg Dental in Broomall, just off the Blue Route, as my dentist and friend of over 12 years now. But now he has two brand new associates, his daughter Alexa and Dr. Geddes. Tell them about him, Bob.
Yeah, it's really a thrill for me to have both the dentists, my daughter and Dr. Jared Geddes. One of the things that I love about them both is when they don't have a patient in their chair, they're in my room watching what I do and trying to learn from me. And we hear enough about the new generation, and they think they know everything and they don't want to work. And I've got two dentists who are really, really want to learn and really, really willing to work hard. And I enjoy learning from them. They brought some new skills and some new technologies to our office that will be great benefits to our patients. And so, if anything, I think that having them both there is going to expand and lengthen my career as opposed to shorten my career.
Pick up the phone or go online, make that appointment, 610-353-2700 or williamsburg-dental.com. That's the connective tissue of all the new. Let's stop the boycott. Let's slow down. You know, you people are just doing this for clicks. This is crazy. Let people live their lives. They're all singing the same thing now. You'll notice it. From the New York Times to Saturday Night Live to even in your social media, this woman, Katie Porter on Bill Maher's show, they're all saying the same thing. What is it with you people coming after these innocent transgenders? The LGBTQ community just wants to live its life, and you vile culture warriors, you. Sununu at the NRA convention this weekend. I think I might have interrupted my train of thought on that. He said, you know, I'm a fiscal guy. I don't want to get into the social issues. Well, the left has, and I hear this, and I know there's some of you in this audience, and I know there's some of you in the Republican Party who vote Republican, who always say this. You always say it. You said it during gay marriage, and you're saying it now. Oh, let's not get distracted with the social issues. You said it during abortion. I know you. I know who you are. I have friends like these. Oh, let's just live and let live. Oh, let's just mind our own business. Oh, what is it with, you know, there are real issues that we can unite the country around, and we always get involved in these social issues. Again, if we're trying to protect the most innocent among us, that is, not get them killed in the womb through abortion, or then when they're born, not subjecting them to sexuality and gender dysphoria and genital mutilation and Frankenstein's lab surgeries, cutting off working human body part. Like if we don't stand up and say no to that, I mean, if to you as a Republican voter, that's, ooh, the social issues, that's uncomfortable. Let's talk about taxes. That's something everybody can agree. Like, you're just abdicating your responsibility. Just go be a Democrat. How about, you know what you'd have an easier time with? If you don't care about the social issues, which, by the way, is all the left cares about. Have you noticed that? And this is the point. This is all they have. Yes, it's true we're having fights about the culture, but it's all they have, and they started, and it's where they want us. And you say, well, then we shouldn't participate. And I say, I can't accept that. I can walk and chew gum at the same time. They would love for us to not participate. So they shove and they shove and they shove. And some inside our party, like Sununu up in New Hampshire, say, let's talk about taxes. And I go, well, that would be nice for you, Governor. I guess you don't have young children. I guess you don't have grandchildren. I guess you're not concerned about sexualizing and mutilating the body parts of young children. That doesn't bother you. You don't have young women that compete in school sports in your life. Well, a lot of us do. You don't like being called a fratty bro for reaching for a beer you like, or because you chuckled at a commercial, and now all of a sudden, a beer brand that you've liked is now being marketed by Nike. I mean, Nike sponsors Queer Youth Field Day. Nike undeterred, by the way. Nike gave Dylan Mulvaney yoga pants and a sports bra, and some women actually said, this is a guy wearing a bra. Like, sports bras are made very specific. Some women, my wife being one, interestingly, who doesn't really have a lot to say about this generally, but she's been reading a lot about women who are quietly talking specifically about the Nike thing. The beer thing doesn't seem to upset them as much. But there are a lot of women who take great umbrage with this dude being given sports bras to market. Because women who actually have breasts that they need to contain when exercising, which is what a sports bra is for, they start talking amongst themselves uniquely about what it is to exercise and run and work out with actual breasts that God gave them. And that's an issue. That's a thing. And these have a function. And women are saying to themselves, does this guy know anything about being a woman and what being a woman is to exercise and work out and the discomfort and the things that we... So they're really, it's a slow boil, but I think it's happening, where Nike has maybe also gone too far. We'll see. Athletic brand Nike continuing to engage in left-wing politics, sponsoring a queer youth field day on the heels of partnering with Dylan Mulvaney to promote women's sports apparel. Participants of the Memphis-based event should identify as LGBTQ+ or an ally of the movement and fall into the broad range of 13 to 25. All LGBTQ+ youth and allies aged 13 to 25 invited to a free afternoon of games, music, giveaways, and good weather. We'll have bounce houses, obstacle courses, blah, blah, blah. Again, are we looking for it? Is anybody asking for this? You know, how much Nike stuff do you have in your closet? I have quite a bit. I own Nike shoes. I own Nike sports apparel. I do. Am I going to go light it all on fire in the backyard? Maybe not. Am I going to think twice now before buying it again? Probably so. Is that me waging a war in social issues, or is that this is a brand that's decided to align itself with 1/10 of 1% of the country? and now I have a choice to make. Well, I'd say it's the latter. From the New York Times, how a campaign against transgender rights mobilized conservatives. Defeated on same-sex marriage, the religious right went searching for an issue that would re-energize supporters and donors. Went searching for an... Did you go searching for this? The campaign that followed has stunned political leaders across the spectrum. Stunned! When the Supreme Court declared a constitutional right to same-sex marriage nearly 8 years ago, social conservatives were set adrift. Now, interestingly, this 9-page editorial from the New York Times, 9 pages. I remember the same-sex debate, the same-sex marriage debate. I remember that. Social conservatives were set adrift. Well, I remember a lot of social conservatives at the time saying, where does this end? How does this end? And by the way, marriage was always something for traditional true conservatives. Marriage was always something, yes, defined as between a man and a woman, but it was also more specifically a states' rights thing. Most conservatives, even, I will say, even in my kind of infancy as a conservative talk show host, was not an enthusiast about the idea of the federal government defining what marriage was. It was always very clearly never in the Constitution. So the true conservative position on marriage was always, yes, I define it as being between a man and a woman, but more to the point, it is not in the Constitution. It is not a federal matter. It was never a federal matter. So it was a states' rights issue. Much like another one that 50 years ago, conservatives were set adrift. Well, we're back. Surprise, and we won. The Constitution won. Not conservatives. Abortion. Roe versus Wade was overturned. By the way, what motivates the left? You notice that? Roe versus Wade is overturned, and this isn't the left picking a fight. This isn't the left engaged in a culture war. They're just trying to right a wrong or some such thing. So abortion is rightly, constitutionally sent back to the states, and we're engaged in a culture war. No, what the left doesn't like is when the states are in possession, rightful constitutional possession of the power to make decisions on things like transgender surgeries and school and abortion. All these things that the Constitution has nothing to say about any of these things. That's another thread in this debate. When the federal government, when the Constitution has nothing to say about this stuff, and you hand it back to the states, what do we know about most of the states? Most of the states are, what, governed by who? Republicans, conservatives. And so what are state legislators doing? State legislators and many governors are starting to pass laws defining what is life and what will be tolerated or not at all when it comes to abortion, and who will be allowed to compete again. Now, yes, there's been a constitutional settling, if that's what you want to call it, by the Supreme Court on gay marriage. That doesn't mean it's over forever. I think down the road it's perfectly reasonable and realistic that the Supreme Court, and this is why they've started attacking people like Clarence Thomas, by the way. And this is why, after Roe versus Wade was overturned, they started screeching immediately about their coming after gay marriage. Because what the left knows is that's no more constitutional than Roe was. And they're terrified that this Supreme Court will, in fact, send gay marriage back to the states, too, as it should. But neither here nor there. This New York Times piece, 9 pages, how conservatives have mobilized a campaign against transgender. Conservatives were set adrift, and now all these zealots have something to mobilize around. None of us were looking for this. I'm not going to play it all. Molly Kearney or Kearney, I don't know, some cast member on Saturday Night Live this weekend. She's non-binary. She's the show's first non-binary, doesn't identify as a man or a woman. Here's a bit from Weekend Update.
Since the start of this year, over 400 anti-LGBTQ bills have been introduced across the country, many of which directly target trans youth. Here to talk about it is someone with their own introduction.
Introducing SNL's first non-binary cast member. It's Molly Kearney.
Made it. Thank you, Mr. Che.
Molly, what is all this?
Well, as you know, I've been wanting to come to Update and talk about trans people, but I have, for a much longer time than that, wanted to fly down from the ceiling.
And did it live up to your expectations?
Yeah, but I'm not gonna lie, this harness is pretty tight and my groin area is beefed. I've been hung up on my genitals for far too long, and I'm starting to feel like a frickin' Republican lawmaker. Hello!
That's an awesome transition. So, as of this week, there are now over 14 states that have passed bills restricting health care for trans kids.
Listen to that, Michael.
Yeah.
Restricting healthcare for kids. For some reason, there's something about the word trans that makes people forget the word kids. If you don't care about trans kids' lives, it means you don't care about frickin' kids' lives.
Wow.
Okay, so you get it. This is a comedy show. Was anybody looking for this? Now, assuming you still watch this show, which most of you don't, I understand, nor did I. I didn't see this. But did you tune into the comedy show for that? You did not. By the way, is this a total misrepresentation of what is true? Of course it is. Did any of these legislatures, did any of these governors, did any of these 14 states they referenced, did any of them go looking for this? Did they just wake up one day, as the New York Times writes, the religious right has mobilized to ban trans kids' health? You see, to the mind-numbed robots, to the clapping seals in that audience, to so many on the left, they don't even understand what that means. They don't even know what this is about. Republicans are banning health care for kids because they're trans? No. Legislatures are saying young people cannot mutilate their genitals until they're adults. And if you said it that way, if you actually articulated it that way, do you think anybody under the age of 18 should be able to, by themselves, mutilate their genitalia? If you said it that way, I would pray most of the country would say, no, that doesn't seem right, which is, of course, what these bills actually are. So keep a sharp eye on it, folks. They are poking, they are prodding, they are picking these fights, and then they're saying it's your problem for noticing. That's the thread, and that's the theme. And yes, we can still talk about taxes and the economy, too. Yeah, I'm going to admit it to you. One of the things that I am horrible about is picking up the phone and investigating something once the thing I'm doing is working. So, for instance, with my health insurance, I don't like picking up the phone and investigating transitioning to a different kind of health insurance because I imagine it's a bureaucratic nightmare. And so somebody says, well, Chris, you're paying a lot of money. I go, yeah, but it works and it's just easier if I'm busy. No, that's why John Ruhlman at U.S. Medical Plan wants to talk to you, because he has a department that handles everything. So you pick up the phone and you tell John, here's what I spend a month on my premium. And he asks you a couple other questions. And then he shops like 80 different private health insurers. So if you're a senior on a fixed income, if you're a young person perfectly healthy, and you buy your insurance through work, have you shopped it and found out maybe you could get a cheaper premium than what you're paying through work? Maybe you buy your own health insurance for your family. Maybe you're a small business owner and you buy it for your employees. Have you shopped it? Look, if the answer is it's the best price and it's the best coverage you can get, John will tell you that. But odds are 30 to 60% savings on your bottom line a month. Hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars a month on your bottom line, simply for picking up the phone and calling him today. Listen, we're talking about appreciable savings and not compromising care. A lot of people think, well, yeah, you give me some substandard cut rate insurance. No. John will always make sure it's at least a lateral move in coverage, but always a better rate. But most times, and I'm talking about people that are, ordinarily healthy and in good shape, there are policies out there that pay you if, God forbid, you ever need them. You ever have to go to the hospital. 877-410-4321. 877-410-4321. Call John Ruhlman. Call U.S. Medical Plan. The website, usmedicalplan.com. You can go watch my conversation with John about all kinds of different insurance subjects. If you want to get a sense of who he is before you call, I get it. That's why I make the video conversation available. Go to chrisstigall.com. He's linked there too, chrisstigall.com, usmedicalplan.com, or 877-410-4321. It's a pleasure to welcome to the show a former member of Congress. This is an impressive guy. He has a great resume. Former representative of the 18th Congressional District in Pennsylvania. He's a trained psychologist and author of a brand new book called The Christ Cure, 10 Biblical Ways to Heal from Trauma, Tragedy, and PTSD. Is it Congressman or is it doctor or is it both? Mr. Murphy, Tim Murphy, welcome to the show.
Well, for this case, I'm talking more as Dr. Murphy.
Yeah.
Not politics.
What? Yeah, right. Amen. In fact, you're no longer in politics, and I ask sometimes people that have left it, how do you feel after your tenure in the House? What do you make of your time of it, I guess I'll just ask, given the theme of your book, and how does it align or not align with your values, which I assume are Christian values?
Yes. It was a great experience. It's a brutal place to work, and it's even more brutal now.
Yeah.
I got a lot done. I focused on mental health reforms and mental health issues. But it is the thing about it is what an honor it was to serve the country and to meet people from all over the country and learn about the different cultures and the like. But also the way things are constantly under attack from all angles. Everybody looking for their soundbite. It's tough. And quite frankly, it wore me down. I had already struggled in my life with issues from my youth and childhood and family of origin, difficulties and depression. I must say this didn't help that very much. I needed to go back and work with my family. And that's all things that led to this book, where in struggling on my own and sometimes, quite frankly, Chris, getting up in the morning and cursing the sunrise, wishing I wasn't there anymore. But I knew I had to get things together. Even though I'm a psychologist, I worked in the Navy, I helped other people with post-traumatic stress and depression and combat wounds. Life wears you down. And unless you get it together and start fixing that, it can wear you out. So that's when I began to write this book.
Boy, you are singing my tune, Dr. Murphy. I have been thinking so much lately about the despair, and I specifically zero in. It's not exclusive to, and I don't mean to sound as though I'm being exclusive here when I say it, but men. I think middle-aged men, and I know we talk a lot about teens, and I know older people have their troubles too, and I know women certainly do as well. I don't mean to exclude, but I'm, as a middle-aged man myself with many middle-aged male friends, there is a unique struggle amongst people my age and my gender, and I have seen and read stories of so many who will just kind of go out to the back and take their lives because they, and you maybe don't even know it, and maybe they can't share it, or maybe they're in the bottom of a bottle regularly. I think men in this country are battling in a very unique way. Do you see that, or am I making too much of it?
No, you're bringing up an important point, and that is that, yes, we've seen massive increases in depression, anxiety, and suicide rates among adolescents. Now, vaccines are the number one killer of them. We see it in the elderly who've given up on life. But the thing about men in general, and particularly middle age, and here I'm going like 30s up through 50s or so, 60s, is that where do they go? Where do we go? Where do we go to get help for that? Guys may talk about things, but we really don't talk heart to heart into things. And talking about religion and faith is something we can't do. We can give you all the sports scores and statistics, but can't cite a single verse of the Bible or a prayer. But we need that. One of the great values of people when they're fighting trauma in their lives is to have a team, to have a community that they're connected with. Because when we're alienated and when we choose to be isolated from others, that actually is a big exacerbating factor, which makes our reaction to stress and trauma, depression much, much worse. So we do need to have that. And that's some of the things I talk about in this book is the value of how being connected with others and faith being one of the vehicles for that is so very important.
If I could we explore that a minute or two? The book, by the way, is called The Christ Cure, 10 Biblical Ways to Heal from Trauma, Tragedy, and PTSD. It's always healthy to have time to reflect and spend time in quiet by yourself, but when does that become something else? When you start to notice, maybe you feel like, I don't want to be around anyone ever. And why is that a bad thing? Some people just say, I'm a recluse. I'm not social. How do you know when it becomes unhealthy?
Well, it is unhealthy to have that. We're designed as social beings. And now it's okay to have solitude. And that has a great value actually in our lives at times when to be alone, to reflect, to actually the ideal is to have such solitude as you can be by yourself and totally comfortable with the company we keep. Because actually in a sense of faith, you're never alone, God's always with you. But what happens is that isolation, which seeks not to be around anybody, and even people can be social but isolated, being at the party but never really talking, never really sharing things, never really discovering things about ourselves, and working that we get into this silence and isolation and avoidance, and that actually hurts our brain, hurts our ability to heal, hurts our ability to connect with other people. Being isolated is not relaxation. It's withdrawing to avoid any contact with others because of anxiety, panic, distress. We want to be recluse, stay in bed all day with the shades down, feeling miserable, wallowing in the arrogance of self-pity. That's not healthy. Having some solitude, the walks by yourself where you're really working on things can be very healthy. But men oftentimes don't do this. So it is a particular concern.
The words trauma, tragedy, PTSD, I think often we might be inclined to think, well, I haven't dealt with that. But sometimes I think people think that those mean something much maybe more severe by definition. You know, trauma, tragedy, I don't know, house fires or death. I would submit to you that a lot of us are suffering to this day. I think I am, if I'm to be perfectly transparent, suffering trauma from COVID. The lockdowns of COVID, closing churches, locking down schools, just kind of radically, fundamentally changed my life, my community's life to the extent my family fled it. Doctor, I still have not totally gotten my head wrapped around it yet. I'm confident this nation is still struggling from that era. What do you say?
That's a very important point. What we know now about COVID is that actually telling people to isolate from one another was not good advice. We didn't have to be right next to one another, but telling people you can't go near a church, even the church outside, telling you can't go out to a park. We know now the sunshine was the best antiseptic on this. But what happens with trauma in general, it's a life-threatening incident or overwhelming emotional crisis. It could be directly at you. You could be a witness to that. It could be a single intense event or long-term stress lasting months or years like we were under with COVID. About 70% of the public are affected by this, will have this in their life. You could witness an accident. You could have a loved one die. Yeah, it could be the tornado or the flood or the house burning down, the being threatened at gunpoint. The kidnapping. It could be those severe things. It could be the soldier. It could be the fireman who's pulled a baby out of a burning building, who's died. It can be the social worker who's dealing with a family and a child who's been severely abused. All of those things can be there. What happens is they're in the categories of some that are random and unavoidable, like I just mentioned. Some are secondary to risk-taking, like I mentioned with policemen, firemen, paramedics, etc. The other one are self-inflicted by our own behavior. And this is when we do stuff, get involved with drugs or alcohol or straying from our relationships or whatever the addiction or gambling is, and begin to destroy our own life. And when we come to terms with the self-inflicted harm of a bad personal choice, what happens to us, we realize people don't want to be near us. One of the biggest traumas is abandonment. People, or betrayal. What you thought was love, you realize, wow, this person has betrayed me. My relationship is over. Where did they go? Those are things that can deeply affect us, even on a neurological level, where brain cells have this photographic memory called a flashbulb memory of the event, where if you've ever been through an event like this, you would know it because you say, wow, I can remember all kinds of details, the sight, sound, smell, taste, touch of that. I can remember those details, even if they're insignificant. But what happens is we do a loop memory. We repeat it over and over and over again. Just imagine the videotape replay of the football play going through your head, not hundreds of times, but literally tens of thousands of times. And what this does to us is it's part of our brain called the amygdala, which is the fight center of the brain. Every time that happens, it's like the smoke alarm going off. So I don't know if there's a fire or not. I'm just telling you, alarm's going off. And then the system goes into ready mode, dumping stress hormones into our body every time we think about it. Long term, what does that do? It makes us more sensitive to pain. It causes inflammation in the brain, the centers of the brain that deal with that inflict depression, anxiety. It causes us to have mental fog. We can't think as clearly. We make mental mistakes. We can get lost on our way somewhere, losing the car keys time and time again, not functioning well at work. All those things happen as the residue of the trauma that keeps repeating in our head. And then we start to have what I call a reaction. That is, we're reacting to feeling upset. Wow, I'm depressed. I must really be bad. Maybe I'm never going to live. Maybe I can't get better. Those issues of the memory loop and the reaction, we can work on those things. People can be healed from those things. I can't change the past. Nobody can do that. But we can accept that that past is there, but we got to move forward. That hurt happens, but healing happens too when you work at it. And that's where there is a lot of hope for that. And this is where men, women, anybody of any age, what we could do is, with the points I make in this book, The Christ Cure, is that when we use faith as part of this formula, we understand that there is thousands of years of work behind this, of people getting better and healing, and we can have hope because we know there's something over the horizon there that is not an unknown. It is there. And even when people face trauma and they oftentimes say, there can't be a God. I'm mad at God. I'm done with this. I'm mad at church. Say, no, there really is a way here. Instead of blaming everybody else, accept that there is hope and trust in our lives, and that'll help us get better.
That was my experience, Dr. Murphy. I was a big drinker for a very, very long time until one day the Holy Spirit came to me in a sermon about John 5, the man at the pool of Bethesda. It struck me like a bolt of lightning, and it was the day I quit drinking. I'm 4 years sober now, and I finally saw that. I mean, as a Christian all my life, I realized I was showing up, but I wasn't living it, right? I was leaning into a bottle every day instead of believing what I was reading and singing and verbalizing. And boy, the healing power of Christ is real if you really do go all in. It's just, I think sometimes, and I'll ask you this in closing, Doctor, this is a great debate, I think, amongst some people of faith. When is it something that's got you to the point you need professional help versus some people who might say, well, I don't know, drugs or psychiatry. No, you just need to lean a little harder into the scripture. You know what I'm saying? There's always that kind of fine line, I think. How do you navigate it?
Most people go to clergy when they have a concern, but only about 10% of clergy say they feel competent to manage it. Listen, it's okay to talk with someone about this and get some training. This book is also written for clergy to teach them how to manage counseling and faith together. And it's meant for counselors, because a lot of counselors are not trained in how to work with faith. God bless you for coming to terms with that, because sometimes God taps us on the shoulder and sometimes we get a 2x4 upside the head. And your moment talking about that scene, the healing at the well, is what the points I make in this book. And that is, Jesus says to people, do you want to get better? They didn't just come up. He doesn't just wave his hands and say, bibbidi bobbidi boo, you're all healed. He says, do you want to walk? Do you want to see? Do you want to get better? And that's one of the things we have to come to terms with our own life. And what I get into in the Christ Cure, and if I may also mention, I have a website, drtimmurphy.com, where my podcasts and blogs and further information on this that go beyond the book, drtimmurphy.com, DR. And I hope people look at these things too. I really want people to understand there is hope. We are hurting as a nation, as a world. But the most important thing is, are you hurting as an individual? Is your family hurting? Let's think of how we can get better and be healed.
So important. Dr. Tim Murphy, former representative of the 18th District of Pennsylvania, now author of this brand new book, an important read called The Christ Cure, 10 Biblical Ways to Heal from Trauma, Tragedy, and PTSD. I hope this will be the first of many conversations we have in the future, Doctor.
I look forward to talking to you again. God bless you. Have a great day.
Well, we're living it. Inflation has consequences. You'll hear me talk with Steve Moore about that week after week as the Fed raises interest rates to combat out-of-control government spending. Long-term bonds have diminished in value, crippling the banks. Depositors are holding their breath. Investors are bailing on bank stocks. Diversification has never been more important. The recent surge in gold prices is directly tied to the extreme market volatility we're experiencing right now, and that's why gold has historically been a great hedge against stock market as well as inflation. So the company that I would recommend to you highly, if you want to diversify, if you're looking to maybe start flirting with the idea of gold, you got to call Birch Gold Group, or at least reach out via text. If you text Chris, my name, if you text Chris to 989898, they will send you an information kit on gold and how to get started. Now, again, I'm not giving you advice here. I'm just telling you if that's something that you're interested in, and I would strongly recommend that you at least investigate it. It can't hurt to just text Chris to 989898. Birch Gold will help you convert your existing IRAs or 401ks that are tied to a volatile market right now. They'll let you actually invest that in physical precious metals, gold or silver. And the best part is it's tax sheltered at that, if you didn't know that. So text Chris to 989898. Claim your free information kit on gold. See if it's right for you. They have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Thousands of happy customers trust Birch Gold already to protect their future, so you can do it too. If it interests you, text for that free info kit. What can it hurt? Text Chris to 989898 today. The clip, but it's not FCC compliant, from Blazing Saddles. Somebody go back and get an excrement load of dimes. It's one of the great scenes in Blazing Saddles. They erect in the middle of the desert a toll booth to try to distract the bad guys. Classic Mel Brooks film. Some bad guys are giving chase, and they build a toll booth in the middle of the desert. All these guys are on horseback, and they come up to the toll booth. And it says you got to have a dime to get through it. You know, and the crossbar raises one at a time. So the bad guys who are stupid, well, somebody's going to have to go back and get he says, S-load. Somebody's going to have to go back and get an S-load of dimes. That's what this made me think of. $200,000 in dimes stolen from a truck in the Northeast over the weekend. Police on the hunt for the people behind a dime and dash theft in Northeast Philadelphia. Around 6 in the morning last Thursday, thieves broke into an unmarked trailer left in a Walmart parking lot. Thieves made off with about 2 million dimes, the trailer carrying an estimated $750,000 in dimes. The thieves stole 200,000 of it. Dimes scattered across the parking lot and the main road nearby. The driver picked up the coins at the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia, headed for Florida. He left the trailer in the parking lot and went home to get some sleep before the next leg of his journey. Is that what in the world are we talking about here? Is the U.S. Mint, are we that hard up now we're just calling guys with trailers to carry our currency around the country? Is that what's going on, Fast Eddie?
I guess so, man. They're trying to get rid of trucks in California. Why not here?
I thought these were like highly secure. I didn't think we moved bulk money around in non-secure vehicles with cards and whatnot. You telling me guys just pull up to the Mint in Philadelphia and go, oh, yeah, just throw her in the trailer there. I'm on the way to Florida. Oh, you tired, Mabel? Yeah, let's stop. I can grab a sandwich, and we'll stop at the Comfort Inn. I'll put my feet up. We'll just leave the trailer there in the Walmart parking lot. I'm sure it'll be fine. Who's $750,000 in dimes headed for the Mint? Or headed from the Mint to Florida? The guy just leaves it in the trailer in the parking lot. Like, look, I know the theft is a story, but the bigger story to me is who leaves this kind of money just sitting in a trailer in a Walmart overnight? Is that legal? Again, I don't know. This came from CNN. This is one of these stories I read. I want to know more about the driver than I do the thieves. The theft is obvious. The driver is what confounds me. MyPillow.com. You know the jingle. There's MyPillow 2.0. It's out now, folks. I just slept on it again last night. You've been hearing for, gosh, I don't know, 20 years. Mike has been making MyPillow. He's been making the commercials, and you wouldn't have thought you could improve upon a pillow, really. But the truth of it is, he's not only improved on the patented adjustable fill, but now he has a brand new fabric and a new temperature-regulating thread to keep you cool. If you sleep hot, and I kind of do, this is the softest, smoothest, coolest pillow, and I mean temperature cool, that you will ever own. And here's the deal. Mike is giving you a buy one, get one free offer with my name, Chris Podcast. When you use that as a promo code, Radio Listener Square, if you go to mypillow.com and click on that Radio Listener Square, enter Chris Podcast, and you will get one free when you order a MyPillow 2.0. Chris Podcast, by the way, gets you up to 66% off everything on the site at mypillow.com. Maybe it's the coffee. I am sipping my pillow, my coffee it's called, not my pillow. It's my coffee. It's delicious. Enjoying it right now. Thank you, Mike. He's got light roast and dark roast versions there, so try his coffee. Listen, support a great patriot, support great American companies like MyPillow and the employees that work there up there in Minnesota. It's a fantastic customer service-oriented company at MyPillow. Every product that you buy from them is a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee if for some reason you don't like it, but they're really high-quality stuff. I mean, the slippers themselves, I sent slippers to a member of the staff. My wife has the MyPillow slippers. I sent pillows. I sent a couple of dog beds. Dean, my dog, is on a MyPillow dog bed, which he loves. Robes and bath towels, whole bath sheets, those great big absorbent bath sheets, if you like those. These Giza Dream sheets we sleep on are like sleeping on a cloud. You will love these products. I just hope you go to mypillow.com. Use my promo code, ChrisPodcast. Get that buy one, get one on the new MyPillow, or up to 66% off every product. MyPillow.com, promo code ChrisPodcast.
The Chris Stigall Show Podcast.